Thanks, George, and thanks everyone for joining today. I know I'm in New England too, so we're all like digging out from the snow, and some of you are at home or at school. But let's take a little time today and talk about SWOT analysis and how it kind of applies to schools and enrollment, and share some thoughts. I'll go through this presentation. Depending on how it's going, please, if you have questions, feel free to post them to the chat. I can answer them at the end, or maybe I'll stop in the middle, depending on how things are going, and answer some of the questions. So let's get started here. So one thing we are really noticing out there is that the funnel is changing, and the amount of inquiries that schools are getting are off. If you talk to SSATB, they'll say there's a large group of their schools that are actually down by 20% of where they're used to being. And the way people interact with your site and how they look for schools is definitely changing. So here are just some stats. Expectations are higher than ever. On average number is 3 of private schools that one applicant applies to. 79% of users will go to a competitor site if they aren't pleased with the schools. 94% of first impressions are design related. So it just reiterates how important design is. And one of the rules that we always say is, I have an iPhone here, and the question is, why was the iPhone so successful? One is it looked really good, but the second thing is you didn't need a manual to figure it out, right? You could go in and you figure out how to use the phone. You got to make sure your design fits that. 80% of users will not return to your website if they have a bad experience. So what about search? How does search impact this environment? And again, this all ties into SWOT. We'll get there. 90% of all online experiences start with search. Do you realize that your Twitter account is on the home page of Google? So if someone's posting something bad or good about you, and you do a branded search, meaning your school name, and it shows up with the Google homepage, that's what people are seeing first. So you got to pay attention to your Twitter account. 80% of all search begins with an unbranded term. You know what unbranded means? This would be private school Manhattan, private school Rochester, New York. You want to make sure that your school shows up there. 80% of education search queries sessions don't end with a conversation, meaning a lot of these people are coming to browse, to learn, and then they make an action later on. So how do we make your school stand out and conduct a SWOT analysis? I think we all get what a SWOT analysis is. We have our strengths, our weaknesses, our threats, and our opportunities. So,
John, I just want to point out, John, sorry to interrupt, just point out that you have to share your screen for us to see your slides. I think you may be thinking we're seeing them and we're not yet seeing them.
That's a great thing.
Green button in the bottom. There you go. We're all set.
So let me...
Everybody who's watching, you can either, up in the right-hand corner, you probably see 4 little thumbnail images. You can adjust that to just see one if you would just like to see John speaking. There's a way to modify that on your computer.
George, thanks. And these were just the slides I jumped through real quick. This was the 90% of online experience. And now we're getting into the SWOT analysis. So we're going to go strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. So our first one we're going to talk about is strengths. So the thing is, you really need to do analysis and figure out what makes your school different and what are the strengths. Because our goal is, we do a SWOT analysis on our school, now we can figure out how we can beat our competition. So the advantages you have over other schools would be a question I would ask. What do you do better than everyone else? The factors that mean you fill your seats, the programs, the faculty, the stories, the campus that are unique to you, the attributes that tip the scale. I had a board of a school in London that called me, and they said to me, hey, how, enrollment's off, inquiries are off. John, what do we do? So I said, give me 10 minutes. So what I did is I went and looked at their competitor site, And I knew quite a bit about the school. So I went back, it took 10 minutes. I called her back. I said, here's what you need to do. I said, are you implementing at all at your school the flipped classroom? And they're like, yeah, of course we are. I'm like, how come you're not talking about it on your admissions page? That's a strength for you. That's what you do. And you're not talking about it. And guess what? Your competing schools don't talk about it either. Are you implementing any type of blended learning? And she's like, of course we are. We're doing this and this and this. I'm like, you're not talking about it. You need to talk about these things to get that. So those were some of the strengths. So let's look at Choate and Lakeside. So focus on the 5% that make you special as a school. So Lakeside has this amazing lab. This is Lakeside School out in Seattle. Something that makes them special. Choate, at a glance, these are all the countries. So they study abroad in 6 different countries where their kids can go for a period of time. So they take little special things that they do. Hawaii Prep has kids creating videos. And what they do is they're like, hey, we're not Exeter, we're not Phillips Academy, but our students are amazing. They show the campus and they show all the activities that their kids are doing. But the kids are creating this content. It's fascinating. Go to Hawaii Preparatory Academy site and you can see that. Let's talk about weaknesses. So our school is not in a great location. We are short-staffed, right? And to handle marketing, admissions effectively, social media, our programs are not like our competitors. And what can we do to make none of these weaknesses? How do we think about this? So using your website to position you. So here's an example. This is an all-girls school in New Jersey. And you know what? One of their biggest issues, they were in a bad location. I don't want to pick on New Jersey, but there's just certain areas that aren't as nice as others. And this school is where the star is, and there's nothing really there. But we zoomed out, and look at this. You can go, this is an interactive map. So you can go to the beach, you can go sailing in Connecticut, you have New York City right here, you can go skiing, hiking. And what we did is we took that weakness and turned it into a positive. Let's talk about opportunities. What are some trends you can embrace? Resources already at your fingertips, trends where you're already ahead of the curve, faculty and programs that you can promote at your school. So let's look at a few. St. Anne's Belfield has a talented video team. Again, students get credit for this course and they're churning out video. We even have stats that show kids or prospective students or current students would rather see other student videos. Like you don't have to hire a professional. You can do it this way. I talked about Hawaii Prep already. Their kids are creating these videos and you can easily go to these different areas. If you go to their site and watch this video, your kid would love it. I have a 14-year-old boy at home. I have 5 kids at home. My oldest boy, Ethan, I showed him a couple of these videos, and one was St. Andrews College in Canada. And I showed him the video, and he was like, Dad, I want to go to this boarding school. And I said, no way, kid, I'm going to raise you. But the point is that video moved my son's emotions to say, I want to go there. And guess who made the video again? The school did. Let's talk about threats. So defend against your threats. Centrally located in a highly competitive area. More expensive than your competition. Technologically, you're behind. You're competing for new faculty. You're fighting against bad press. Not performing well on search. So they're just not popping up. So one thing you got to remember is people can shop on your website 24 hours a day, right? That's the internet. They can go whenever they want. Your school can be open or closed. This is Pingree in New Jersey. Pingree came to us and said, John, you're wrong. We have plenty of inquiries. We have they're submitting when the kids are 1 year old so they can get into the school. They have no issue about that. But what they want to do is they want to be the best school in the region. So Pingree knows it's the most expensive, and they want to show everyone it's worth it. So if you go to Pingree's tuition and value part of their site, they tell a whole story about why they're worth you paying $32,000 a year, $36,000 a year, and $38,000 a year. They tell you why. And what they're doing is creating value. Secondly, I don't know, have you guys heard of Amazon.com? So we use Amazon at Finalsite, and every time we log in, they're saying to us, we do this, and they show us all the neat stuff. They're always showing value, like something cool you can do. So every time we log in, we're like, yeah, it's worth paying them $500 per user or whatever the cost is. From a retention standpoint, are we doing this at our schools? So your schools all should have a login page for your portal for your parents or students. Why not put a picture in the background and show an activity that's going on at your school? Something that creates value. So for many schools, one of the biggest threats is actually search. So let's just talk about these. We talked about them a little bit earlier on, but 83% of search queries passed begin with unbranded. So this is like private school Manhattan, private school Rochester, private school Albany, private school Buffalo. So you need to make sure if they type in anyone moving to your area, this is where you get the prospect to go to your site. Once they get to your website, your job is to sell them value of why your school is worth whatever you're charging. And then your goal is to have them do an inquiry. So I don't know if you know about this, but mudrooms, right? Every house has a mudroom. I'm sure George's house has a mudroom there. And my kids at our house, we live on a farm. The kids come in. We have like all these lockers where kids are supposed to put their stuff. But our kids come in, they kick their shoes off, and there's like a big pile of clothes in front of the locker. But my wife's like, if we have a guest, don't let them enter through the mudroom. Have them enter through the front door. So what we're finding is that people are browsing your websites and they're coming in through the mudroom, and you're not able to sell them value. What am I talking about? So what's happening is if you went to Google and you looked at the search, you'll find that they're skipping your homepage, and they're going right to the admissions section. They're going right to the athletics section. They're going right to, so you got to make sure you're selling value throughout your site. So you could look at Google Analytics and say, what pages and what part of the site are people entering on? One other thing we are finding is that we have almost half of the NEIS schools use Finalsite. And we see that half of the traffic is coming from mobile devices now. So that means people are coming more in on their phones and iPads than they are through a browser or a desktop. So here are just a couple other schools. So Hotchkiss is one of our clients. So you go to their homepage, amazing, right? Amazing campus, you come shooting in. But if you went to Community Life, they also tell a story there. So a lot of schools are thinking not only about their homepage, but they're thinking about the mudroom to make sure it's clean. So if we look through this, so search is your first impression. So look at this, San Francisco Waldorf School. So we see that their sites here. Here's the mudroom clicks that they're skipping the homepage. Then we see a couple other schools. Wikipedia is next, and then Yelp. So what we're saying is make sure you're paying attention to this stuff also. I was actually at an event at NYSAIS, and I had a bunch of heads of school, and I was talking with them. And we were talking about rateyourteacher.com and about all these like social rating places. And we were like, how do we turn these negative posts, let's say they're negative, into a positive? So a head of school from the New York group of schools said, John, this is what we did. and I'm like, brilliant, I'm going to keep sharing this. She said, let's talk about rateyourteacher.com. Why don't you tell your students on Valentine's Day to go to rateyourteacher.com and tell your teacher what a good job they're doing for you and what you appreciate about that one teacher. Because it's so easy for the negative spin to go there and post something and turn it into a negative thing. So you need to give and remind your students to go share those positive experiences on rateyourteacher.com, on Yelp, on these different areas. But you want it to be authentic, so you got to be balanced in your approach. So don't have 5,000 show up on the same day. You should have your teachers or have the dean talk about those things. So turn things that are negative into a positive experience. How to use data to conduct a SWOT analysis. So we have, and I'm not here pitching Finalsite. You can use other stuff like Dazzles with NEIS. It's a dashboard. But we've created a dashboard too, and we're able to compare and benchmark schools. So we could take a K-8 school in New York and benchmark it against another K-8 school to see how you're doing on trending on like how long people are staying on your site, where are they clicking, where are they entering, so you can kind of compare yourself against peers. So you can take that to leadership groups to kind of share what you're doing. So data is always helpful when you're going through stuff like this. So let's talk about how do we turn a SWOT analysis into a web strategy? Like, what are some things you can do? So one thing I know is that people don't read as much anymore. So this is called an infographic, and a lot of schools are putting these up. So this one here came from westtownschool.edu, westtown.edu. You should check it out. And I'm thinking I'm a parent, so just think about this. I'm a parent. I'm on their homepage. I see this infographic, and I look at 100% college acceptance. And I go like, wow, if I'm paying all this money to send my kid to your school, that's a great stat. Let's look at some more. World language taught in middle school, 4. Field trip to lower school. But on the CMS on the back end, you could go in and change that 4 to a 5. But the whole idea is we're talking about the mudrooms too. You need to make sure some of these stats are broken up even on your mission page, right? So if they skip your home page, that they can go here. The Baylor School, this is another one I love. PAP Past and I just presented at NEIS, and we were talking about this, about showing your colleges, when your kids graduate, they get into these schools. This is scrolling across the Baylor School in Tennessee, showing all these great schools. And a parent goes here and goes, wow, someone in the crowd raised their hand and said, John, so, these kids are under so much pressure to get good grades. And now you're pushing that they need to get into these colleges. We have suicide rates, we have this stuff. And I said, Pat answered the question first, which I was glad for. But the point is, you need to sell value for someone to see the value at your school. But this is only about when you graduate. There's all these other things that bring value to your school besides where they get in. And if you go to Pingree, they'll list out 30 things of why their school is so great. Parent to teacher ratio, student to teacher ratio, and all the different activities they have. But we got to be careful. We're not overemphasizing, but we always got to remember if people are paying something, they're paying for some value. Harpeth Hall, again, a video says an amazing thing. Go to Harpeth Hall and look how they talk about their video. Social media. At the end of this, I want to pull up a public school. But we have a lot of schools now that are pulling in mashup pages. So what schools are doing, they're taking pictures of their classroom. So every teacher has to post once a day on Twitter, and they'll show activities going on in their classroom. Because what parents are looking for is authentic content. So I'm going back to my iPhone here. I have a case. And how do I know that this is a good case? So one is I could just go to the website and believe all the marketing propaganda and that Russia's hacking us. So I don't believe in fake news. I hear all this stuff. But what I do believe is what you guys say. So if I go to Amazon, I look at the reviews, I'm more apt to buy this case than others because of what you're saying. So the parents coming in are looking for more authentic content. So by showing Twitter and stuff coming out of your school on the homepage is really powerful. I'm gonna show you some live websites on this, but I also recommend investing in SEO and PPC just to make sure you're unbranded in your branded show, because you could have the most beautiful website, but if your stuff doesn't show up, what is it worth, right? Like, what is your site worth? All right, I cranked through that for the point is I'd like to show some live stuff, but I would also like to open it up to questions since we're using Zoom, and it's a great product to have some interaction with. So I'm going to just show one website here quick. Ellington Public Schools. So this right here is a school, a public school in Connecticut. And by chance, my kids go here. I know the superintendent, blah, blah, blah. But I said, I want you to be like an amazing public school. So their middle school is rated #1 in Connecticut, lots of things. But watch this, when I scroll down, they are pulling stuff out of all the classrooms from sporting events. And I'm telling you, the amount of traffic this site's get with parents coming in wanting to see what's going on, because the goal of this superintendent was between 8 and 10 o'clock, parents usually get on Netflix, look at their favorite blog, do different things. And he's like, I want to make Ellington's public school website a place where parents go, a destination. And they have done this. But I'll tell you, if you go to this school and look at all the things that are going on in the classroom, you'd be like, this is like one of the best academic institutions around. Actually, no, it's a good academic institution, but what they're doing is they're sharing the assets and stuff that's going on. If this was a private school and you saw this as a parent, you're going to win the mothers over yesterday. So why can't you put a mashup page on your homepage or on a lower school or on a middle school or on the upper school? Show what's going on in the classroom. It takes the teacher literally max 5 minutes to post a Twitter post of something going on in the classroom. And we all know parents like to see stuff with their kids. You can even moderate this. There's lots of moderation through mashup pages where you can be like, hey, only show this geolocation, or you can make stuff sticky so it stays up. But the whole idea is make sure you're sharing that story. I just wanted to show Westtown quick. So here's the Westtown school. A drone shot to kind of show what's going on campus. But when I scroll down here, here's that infographic I talked about. And then here's a mashup page showing what's going on at the school with different activities. Again, authentic content is what we're going to. So I'm going to pause here now, and I'd like to stop sharing my screen for a minute. And what I want to do is go back, and let's open it up to some questions. So, if you have a question.
So just a reminder to, oops, sorry, didn't mean to talk over you, Jen. Just a reminder, you can click off your mute by going to the lower left-hand corner, and then the microphone is live, and please feel free to ask Jon any questions you might have.
I'll start by apologizing. Here in Lake Placid, there's 2 feet of snow. So I arrived late, everybody. I'm curious, so on a mashup page or when you're doing multiple posts, let's say hypothetically you have very few hits or likes or that type, the reactions, is there any risk or concern with that, or not really?
Not at all. So the whole idea of the mashup, a lot of people aren't going to just like it because it's on your mashup page. It's creating an easy way to get a photo or a video activity right onto your homepage. They may not interact at all with it besides viewing it. But they then could click on any of these mashup pages, like on a Twitter account or Instagram, and they actually could pull it. They could go right there and then click I like it or I don't like it, whatever you want on that page. So don't worry about likes. What you want to do is share that content. And what school are you at, David? Are you at North?
I'm sorry, North Country School, junior boarding school.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of your school with your farming activities you have going around and the kids that interact with the school. I think you guys should absolutely pull a mashup page and show what's going on day to day, because you're doing amazing stuff up at your school.
Thanks. And we did add it fairly recently, and we're trying to also understand how deep should it go, because as you know, once faculty start adding content, it can go a day deep, and that also is probably, we finally screened it and we took off things that were too old.
Yeah, you gotta have a strategy and keep looking at it and updating it depending on what's going on,
right?
And what's hot at the time, and especially seasonal stuff and special events. You have your alums coming back. It'd be kind of cool to get the alums to see like some special events that they remember at the school. Especially you guys, you got a lot of uniqueness there.
Thanks.
Good question. Someone else.
This is Eve. I'm at Village Community School in Greenwich Village, New York. I am really curious about, this all sounds great, but it also sounds expensive in time. How do you see, what kind of staffing does one need to manage this?
When you say this, are you talking just about the mashup page, or are you talking about SEO or updating the website? Just be a little more specific, or you can say all, and I can just go through
all.
Okay. I'll go with all. So on a mashup page, once it's set up, it can feed itself, meaning what you do is give a policy to your teachers. You could do it by hashtag, or you could do it by account. And then you could say in the classrooms, everyone take one picture a day of students in an activity, and you go and they'll take the picture. It'll automatically show up on your site, and you can let it go from there. I would have someone checking now and then, because it's kind of the branding of your school. You don't want to be blind, but that should be self-sufficient. When it comes to maintaining a website, the schools have all different budgets. Some schools will have 3 people managing it, and you could break up, like admissions can manage their content, development, and then you could have communications. You could have a secretary updating the calendar. So they have to talk to people anyway, so why not point them to the website when they're doing their open houses or that? They should be able to maintain them themselves, and it shouldn't add more time in the day. I know schools get parents to donate time, and a lot of times they're very good at friend raising and getting other shots around the school. Even sports teams, they'll take like someone on the team or someone who didn't make the team that, say whatever reason, it's a special kid in some way, that the kid could actually record a video of the game, and they're able to post to this environment. So they're able to share some of that authentic content. So all this stuff is like, they should be doing it anyways. You're just repurposing the time. But someone probably should be taking at least 10 hours a week to make sure that the right stuff's getting done. And I would say even posting like news, you could go in and post all your news and calendar stuff once a week, and it will timely go update itself, and you don't have to touch it. So you could go in once a week to manage that. It's more about discipline and what the messaging is going to be. you can do a lot or little, but I'll say the schools who do more end up moving up on search, and they get more interaction the more posts and activity you have on your site, which makes sense, right? I'm sorry if that was long-winded, Eve, but I hope it's helpful. Someone else.
I would like to share, and maybe you have some of these stats. It'd be interesting to see how many people would raise their hand if you asked, would it be helpful to do some data collection to see, based on the size of the school, let's say starting at 100, moving to 200 students, moving to 300, what is the FTE full-time equivalent of managing, let's combine the website and social media, so that includes mashup, working with people, you know, whatever your communication is. How many schools divide it by admission, development, communication? How many schools rely on a webmaster in the communication office? Let's say the expertise is there and not shared with development and admission for whatever reasons. I just would be curious for a show of hands if people already have that figured out, or if you have those kinds of stats, just to guide when you're going to your head and saying we don't have enough, or he says you have too many people, so do more. And it kind of supports the last her question about you know, how to manage it.
So you want me to ask the question? So let's do like how many schools have under 100 students? I don't know if we have any on here.
Yeah, we are under 100.
You're under 100.
But then we have camp, so we're irregular. Everybody has their irregularities. So our communication office is shared with managing Camp Treetops, which is a large operation.
Okay, so you're one that's under 100. So how much time do you guys spend a week on updating right now?
Well, we have 2 people in the communications office, and so I actually can't speak to their division of labor.
Okay. How about school 200 or under? Anyone want to come on the mic and just share that? What time their school's taking?
I don't know about actual time. It's one person who's shared between marketing, admissions, and development. And I would say maybe 30 to 40% of her time is in that sphere.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, let's go 300 or under.
So Cadman has about 250 kids. We have one communications person. She's centered in the development office.
Okay.
Works with admissions. You know, so all communications. So part of it's web, part of it's just kind of communications innovation work that you're talking about.
Yep.
So she's constantly working on churning out social media, our communications, our web work, our all the materials. So one communications person.
Okay. So I think what we're finding so far, it doesn't really depend on the size of the number of kids. It's depending on your organization so far of how you actually, like what the importance is of the school and where they want to invest. Someone else. Monica, did you have something?
Yeah, this is Monica, and similar to Matthew, we have one person that centrally is working primarily with our development office, our advancement office, and I'm trying to find a way to sort of bridge her a little bit more into admissions and work closely with her. And using social media has been sort of a new initiative we started this year with just Facebook, and now we're thinking about Twitter and we're thinking about mashups, and I find this to be very helpful.
Good.
I think, Sarah, did you have a question? You have your virtual hand raised. Is your microphone working,
Yes.
Sarah?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Hi, sorry, I'm working from home with a baby today, so multitasking. I didn't want to unmute too soon. My question is about privacy. I'm at Westside Montessori School in Manhattan, which is a preschool for children 2 through 6 years old. and they're not acquainted with social media yet. A lot of our parents have concerns about privacy and posting photos of children. So I wondered if you had worked with that and if you had any suggestions of how we could post things without showing too much.
I think number one is in your admission process, whoever's coming in, there might be most likely a higher percent of parents that don't want their kids shown at that age. So you got to work with your constituents. If they don't care, or they're willing to say, yeah, we don't mind if you show our kids, then you probably could do more posting at the school of what's going on. But you got to respect, of course, your policies and what your parents would like there. So your age group, you might need to pull it back and do more like, unfortunately, back ahead shots or activities where you can't identify the children as much, but still show stuff going on and be a little more selective in your picture taking. But it's still the same, Sarah. Like, people are looking for authentic content. So the more stuff you have of real life stuff going on is better. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I've seen the other schools have the back of head type shots, and I don't know how authentic it seems. So we've sort of steered clear for now. But show the kids, like, if you do it back ahead, be far enough back where they're like interacting on an activity of some sort. Just do a bunch of back ahead shots, you know? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Related to that, I'm curious to know, in getting teachers on board with documenting and with sharing, are there sort of some easy ways to begin this work and streamlining the quality and streamlining the timing, perhaps not over-representing one aspect of a program? I don't know, what are some tips on how to begin this work with teachers?
So this is just teachers in general. Whatever you're going to roll, like if you're rolling out a learning management system or something like that, there's like this ratio, right? There's 20% that have been asking for it for a long time. There's another 20% that are happy to go on it. And then you're at your 40% number, and then there's the 20% that will go because you force them. And then there's like another 40 or like, I just don't want to do this. So that's how we're kind of breaking up our teachers in a way. So if we're going to implement something, my recommendation is you got to find your teachers that like doing this already, and you make them kind of the mentor. So you take that 20 to 40% of your teachers and you start this, right? And you start posting stuff out of their classroom once a day. This is the type of photo. It's starting to go up on your site. What's going to happen is it's kind of like the crowd effect, is other teachers are going to see it and they're like, these teachers are getting like credit. They'll be standing next to them and a mom will come in and go, hey, I love what I saw Joey doing today. That was amazing. And the other teachers also got to be like, it's almost like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Other ones will start coming on because of it. So you're up to your 60% number. You have another 40 that pretty much probably has to come down from the leadership of the school at some point that they mandate this, because it helps admissions. Inquiries are off, this is our strategy, and we need this done. But I think you phase that in, like you get the winners, the people that want to do it already, and then you start with, there's like you're up to 60%, and then you probably need a mandate from leadership after a year, 6 months to get everyone else on board. Does anyone agree with me? Nod your head or think I'm out to lunch. I'm getting some nods. Okay, good question. Anyone else? It's okay to end this early. No one will hurt my feelings.
John, I have a question. One of the things, boards are often involved in SWOT analysis and planning. And I just wonder, to what extent do you find that it's important to involve the board in an assessment of this type? Do you find this to be better dealt with at the administrative level, or do you find it's good for leadership to involve the board in this kind
So from a board level, we all know how I have a board. I'm on a board, and like I totally get it. So there's certain boards where you're like, I want to take this to, and there's other boards where you're like, no way. Like if you bring it to them, they micromanage you through everything, and it's like twice as much work. So first off, you got to know your audience. Secondly, if you can get a board bought in, so all you'd have to do, I would even take them, if you want to do this at your school, take them and show them a public school. Don't show them Ellington. Just go and show them the mashup on Ellington's page. Like, look what this school is doing. And they'll be like, what school is this? And you're like, hey, this is a public school. And we're a private school, and they're marketing better than we are. Look what they're doing. That alone will create some competition and some like demand, right? On the board level, if you can get someone who's they're into technology and savvy and understand marketing a little bit, you talk about authentic content and you show them a mashup page like I showed you on Ellington or Westtown. We have doing it. And you show them that will help win your board member over, right? Like it's common sense. Like you see a little kid doing something in class and it's like, wow, look how great that was. The board member would absolutely help you get funding or get it through. But again, it's like, you want to make sure they're going to be an advocate and not a time drainer from a board level. And George, you know that. You work with them a lot. And you get how they are. So I think it's selective.
John, this is Eve again.
Yes, Eve.
You mentioned that that when people start to search an unbranded search, that they often get connected to sites like Rate Your Teacher.
They can, yes. Yelp, Wikipedia, Rate Your Teacher.
So what are some of those other sites?
So Wikipedia, Yelp, Niche. You guys hear about those guys?
No, I don't know them.
So they are creating a stir in all our associations. So first off, make sure you're up on Wikipedia and your stuff up there is really good. It's usually top 3, top 4 on Google. Yelp is usually top 5. So make sure you're reminding your parents, even in the footer of your emails that you send out, and give them a link to your Yelp site. So if they do hear something good about you, they'll naturally go in. Make sure they know that that's an opportunity. And then there's this niche, however you want to call it, that's out there. I was meeting with the CEO of the company at NYSAIS, and all of a sudden I had like directors of associations coming up to me like, what are you meeting with this guy for? Like, you know what these guys are doing? And I was like, wait, I don't even know what they're doing. But I've been getting a lot of emails because we work with 40 associations, and I've gotten a lot of info on these guys. So when they're ranking you, this company that's high up on Google right now, at least right now, they'll give you a rating like #1 school in New York City. And the association's like, this school's failing, and like, how did they ever get this ranking? The ranking is not really based on, it's more computer generated with some other stuff, and then niche you'll pay $3,000 or $5,000 to keep a ranking and get more listings up there, and schools are paying it. So it's creating this environment where you're paying to almost get your ranking, and it's not all clean yet. They don't have a good, I think it's a great concept, but it would be nice if the schools all could rank, or someone that has some sort of like authority or something that knows about the school, but it's not seen in a very good light right now from any association or any groups of people. But if you're a school and you also get this badge that says you're the best school in New Jersey and you're getting tons of inquiries, you're like, this is a great site. But niche is going to come and go. Yelp, Wikipedia, rateyourteacher.com, these are going to be around for a long time. So just, I'm sharing openly with this. George, you can talk to me later about this, because I know it's a hot topic at some of the associations.
Well, it is, and with a son who's just heading off to college next year, I'll let you know that a lot of kids at the high school level are certainly looking at niche as a way to find out where colleges are, as sort of the, what's really going on kind of perspective. So I don't know how much that's affecting K-12 parents, but I would imagine, K-12 kids, if kids are looking at high schools, middle school kids looking at high schools, I imagine that's on their radar as a site. And I've heard similar sort of negative things about their techniques for rating and how that happens.
Yeah, it's terrible unless you're the school that gets the unfortunate great ranking. Did I say unfortunate or fortunate?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No,
Another question that came up to me, John, I noticed that when you asked the question about how many people have, what percentage of employees are devoted to communications or working on the website, I wonder if because some hands didn't go up, it's because there are not people in some schools that have that primary responsibility. And I wonder, when you deal with schools that have not yet made that
I get your
key
point.
people might be that could be tapped.
Yeah, so schools that don't have someone overseeing that usually would go more from, they'd get donated parent time to help out, and they'd put their site up, and the only two things that probably get updated is news and calendar, right? They don't have the time. But I would say if you enlist an army, meaning all your faculty, just to take a couple pictures here or there, I'm telling you, 5 minutes a day, authentic content on the site is going to help these schools share what's going on, and get a mother who just is looking for a place for their, their precious bundle, their kid, and they see like this very caring, loving environment. And I'm talking about a lower school now, right? High schoolers don't want to be caring and loving, but if you're a mother and you're seeing that, it does make a difference. It really does. So, and I wonder, I only went to 300 schools. How about above 300 schools? 300 students or more. That's another thing we didn't do. So like Eves and different ones, I'm sure you have more. How many people do you have at your school?
We have 2 full-time in communications, and then the director of advancement who splits her time between communications and fundraising.
Yep. I'll maybe just share this with you, because at Finalsite, one of my jobs is to kind of direct our company where we're going in the future and what we're doing. And one area we're making a big investment in is personalization and inbound marketing. So I'm just sharing this not because I'm asking you to buy Finalsite. It's nothing we're selling today. It's what we're building. And I think this is where the future is going. Because like if you go to Amazon, like everything's getting personalized to who you are. And on the web, if you see stuff that's more related to your interest areas, you're more apt to read or consider it. So we're building things like if you were in admissions, that if we see that you're coming back to the site for the 3rd time, we can actually make it so you could do an inquiry. Or we see you're clicking on certain types of content, we could show you something related so you could click and do an inquiry. Like more like actionable things that you can do through the site, but we don't know who you are yet. Or if you're in development, you could send an email out, and when alum clicks back to the website, you know who they are then. And you could see George keeps clicking on the soccer games, right? George is an alum. He keeps clicking on the soccer stuff. So then you could start personalizing some of the content out to these folks. Or if you talk to them, you could talk to them about the sports arena, and you're building a new sports arena, or hey, you have tickets to the game, or like you can relate to more what the interest is of the people coming to your site. Some of this might be a little creepy, but everyone's doing it out there, like your Amazons, your Googles, wherever you go, they're kind of personalizing it to what your interests are. And we're finding at Finalsite that if there's less and less students applying to our schools, you need to make sure you're getting the right type of content in front of them. If you're an international school, how great would it be if a parent from China is coming to your site and the picture on the front page changes to a Chinese student interacting with a teacher or other students? They're seeing something more related, or the inquiry form has some Mandarin on it in English, but I feel like it's like, this is like home. It's more related to me instead of like everyone's looking at the same generic content. But it's where like we see the market going, in the schools that want to be, I want to use the word smart, not in smart and dumb. I want to use it as in smart content, that are smart, that really start going down this road. But that's where it's going in the future. Anyways, for what it's worth for you as you think about this stuff.
Excellent. Well, we're doing great on time. If anyone has a final question for Jon before we break this afternoon, now would be the time to ask it. What we will do is we'll send a recording of this session, as I mentioned earlier. We'll also send Jon's slides along with Jon's contact information, so you'll be able to get in touch with him directly if you have a follow-up question afterward. But any final questions before we go?
I just had a quick question by a show of hands for those of you who work in the admissions field. Do any of you take on communications work by putting things out on social media or on your website? Just by a show of hands, are any of you in admissions doing communications work as part of your day-to-day or weekly workload? Okay. No.
I mean,
thank you.
Monica, Alyssa works with Jennifer. She'll meet with like Jennifer once a week, talk about what we want to communicate about admissions, and communication person may look over the stuff that Jennifer's putting out, et cetera. So there's definitely a relationship there, strong relationship.
Great. Thank you.
And just in closing, I just want to thank everyone everyone's in snow right now. We're all bearing with it, but thank you for taking the time to come out. I hope what I shared was helpful and you guys can use it to benefit your schools, whatever product you're using. And, once George shares my information, it doesn't matter if you're a Finalsite client or not. If a lot of you who know me, I care about the industry in general. I'm pro private schools, and I really want to help all of you do better at what you do. And please don't hesitate to reach out. Connect with me on LinkedIn, on social media, or just email me. George will send the contact information out, and I'm happy to help whoever it is. And we actually have Red Abbott who works with us. He's a graduate from Princeton, and he will even look at some of your social stuff for free just to see where you guys are at, if he has any quick recommendations for you, if that's of help to your schools. Because we know there's bigger schools and smaller schools, and some of you don't have the luxury. So if there's any help we can do to help any of you guys, we're here. So thank you again, and be safe, and we'll hopefully be in touch again. Thank you. Thank you.